What is up, boys and girls? Londrick here, and now I'm back with another Q&A. This one is wrestling in 1998, and first off, just apologise for taking so long for doing that. I mean, I've been meaning to do it for the last couple of weeks, but I'm just going to be honest, I just haven't been asked. I've just been too lazy. So I don't really have an excuse to why it's taking so long to do it. I just haven't really done it. Couldn't be asked, couldn't get motivated to do it. But I'm doing it now anyway, so sit back and relax, folks. So you know how this works. I'll post a video before you, and you ask the questions, I'll give the answers. That's simple. So yeah, so let's go. Basically, first set of questions: We Are Pro Wrestling. Should the 1990? This is an interesting one, ironically now, given the news that just broke last night. Should the 1998 War Games match have been Hollywood versus Wolfpack? Yeah, I think so. I think it definitely should have been. I mean, I think the traditional either 4 versus 4, 5 versus 5, instead of the 1998. How they think, it's quite funny now how they think of the War Games, and they had 3 versus 3 versus 3, which is ironic because, in case you didn't know, last night it brought the NXT TakeOver Survivor Series weekend main event is gonna be a 3 versus 3 versus 3 War Games match, but which I don't have a problem with. But as far as this question goes, yeah, I think so. I think you could have had. I'm trying to think of who was in the groups at the time. So obviously Nash. It was Luger maybe. Cause I can't remember all the Wolfpack members at the time. Obviously NWO. You could have had Hogan, Steiner, Hall, Bagwell. Maybe was Bagwell in NWO Hollywood at the time. Then of course, if you did the same match, you could have done the exact same Warrior Trapdoor spot. And maybe in that case, you could have had Bret Hart versus DDP facing off in a singles match for the winner, facing Goldberg, Halloween Havoc. So yeah, I would agree with that. It should have been Hollywood versus Wolfpack. It was a Deadly Games tournament, Vince Russo's greatest one night of booking. I think so, yeah, I absolutely do agree with that. I mean, let's be honest, we've all criticised Vince Russo before, haven't we? And I'm sure we will do again. But this night, Survivor Series 1998, definitely Russo's finest hour as a booker. I mean, the way that tournament was booked was pretty much perfect, really, wasn't it? So, going into the show, you had vacant WWF Championship. It was going to be put up in a one-night tournament to determine the new champion. But then you had Vince McMahon going up against Stone Cold Steve Austin. Vince would do anything to make sure Austin's not the champion. But at the same time, Vince was having problems with The Rock as well. Because I remember The Rock, Vince was pissed off at the people. He said he's got a problem with the people. He's got a problem with the people's champ. So Vince was feuding with both Rock and Austin in the build-up, and at the same time it seemed as though he'd handpicked his corporate champion, Mankind. Vince had been manipulating poor Mick Foley, because there was a weird thing where Vince obviously couldn't stand Foley, but Foley was a bit dumb and gullible, so Vince was going to use him. Mankind was going to be his world champion, and then you see how it goes. So obviously, you see that in the first match where Vince basically gives Mankind to Martel Khan and Dwayne Gill in a mystery opponent. So looks like Vince is trying to fix a tournament into making sure Mankind becomes the WWF champion. Obviously, in the first round, Vince puts Austin against the Big Boss Man. Obviously, Vince is a corporate bodyguard, where Austin wins by disqualification, but Boss Man beats down Austin with a nice stick, hopefully trying to put Austin out of the tournament. But then this backfires when X-Pac and Steven Regal wrestle to a draw. The winner of that match would have faced Austin in the second round, so by virtue of that, Austin got a bye to the semi-finals. And then The Rock, and this is where it gets interesting. And when you look back, you see the clues that they planted all night. So Vince, obviously Triple H had been injured for a while, but they booked The Rock versus Triple H for the first round of the tournament. But of course, obviously now looking back in storyline terms, Vince knew Triple H wasn't going to be there, and he wasn't. So Got a replacement in the Big Boss Man, who The Rock beat in like 4 seconds. Obviously, Mankind gets by Al Snow. The Rock gets by Ken Shamrock, but get this, looked like Boss Man was interfering on Shamrock's behalf. He went to throw the nightstick into Shamrock, but The Rock intercepted it and hit Shamrock. So, as part of the storyline, Boss Man accidentally on purpose helped The Rock get to the semi-finals. And of course, semi-finals is where it really got really interesting. Austin, Mankind. In the build up to this, they did a thing where Shane McMahon finally stood up to his dad, Vince McMahon, turned babyface. It was Shane who hired Austin back and all that, so it looked like Shane's a babyface, and then Vince was humiliating Shane by demoting him to be a referee. So we got the match. Austin had the match won. Shane went to do the count, the 1, 2, and instead of counting 3, flipped Stone Cold Steve Austin off, and then the corporation helped Mankind defeat Austin. So Vince and Shane were in cahoots all along. And they successfully screwed Stone Cold out of the title, giving Mankind a clear pathway to being the champion. But Vince, although he conquered Austin, he still had The Rock at the tenor of The Rock versus Mankind. So it looked like, yep, Vince is going to make sure Mankind beats The Rock to become the 1998 Deadly Game tournament winner, the WWF champion. And then, in quite a brilliant move, so remember Survivor Series 1998 was 1 year after Survivor Series 1997 with the whole Montreal screw job. So, and I know I've hated a lot of Montreal reenactments since then, but that was mainly because it was like 10, 15 years later and they were still doing it. But 1 year later, they did the thing where Rock got Mankind the sharpshooter, and just like it did in 1997, Vince rings a bell. What the hell's going on? The Rock, Vince and Shane hug. The Rock turns heel. It was a setup all along. Mankind was not the hand-chosen corporate champion. It was in fact The Rock. So Vince duped everybody. The Rock duped everybody. The Rock sold out to the corporation to take the WWF championship, and it was just brilliant. So, and like I say, you look back, you see the clues that you leave all night. Vince just happened to book The Rock with an injured wrestler, and the Boss Man stepped in the last minute, let The Rock beat him in 3 seconds. Boss Man just accidentally threw the nightstick into the ring to go, and The Rock caught it and hit Shamrock to go through. And then the whole screw job, it was just brilliant. That's probably one of the wrestling's greatest ever heel turns, in my opinion. Probably in my top 5 favourite heel turns of all time, especially in the WWF. We're not, if you count all promotions, top 5, WWF, probably top 3 maybe. I mean, I would say obviously the one's probably Andre's in '87, but this one was, yeah. So yeah, after I explained all that, to answer the question, yes, it was Vince Russo's finest hour as a booker. Then you thought so when Savio Vega came out as Shawn Michaels' replacement in No Way Out. Yeah, that was just one of those wow, wow, wow moments, wasn't it, really? I mean, every time people discuss bad surprise replacements, this one gets talked about all the time, and it's not shitting on Savio Vega or anything, but Shawn Michaels, Savio Vega. Shawn Michaels, Savio Vega. You see the difference? So, to explain what he's talking about, people don't know, the main event for No Way Out 1998 was supposed to be Stone Cold, Owen Hart, Cactus Jack and Terry Funk facing DX, Shawn Michaels and Triple H and the New Age Outlaws. And I say and the New Age Outlaws because Outlaws weren't in DX yet, so obviously, clearly you're combining 3 of the top matches of WrestleMania, Austin and Michaels, Triple H and Owen, and Cactus and Chainsaw versus the Outlaws. But of course, Shawn Michaels got the big back injury at Rumble 1998, didn't wrestle again until WrestleMania 40, and then of course, as you probably know, was gone for 4 years after that, which meant they'd advertised Shawn Michaels, but he couldn't wrestle, so they only pulled him like publicly on the day of the show, and then his replacement was Savio Vega. I mean, that just was like, what? I mean, all in fairness, if you think about it really, like out of context, who actually was he really? I mean, there actually probably wasn't anyone else, unless you put China in there, and because obviously, of course, China didn't wrestle for about another year, so I suppose China's the only other one you could have really put in there as a to have a 8-man tag. There was really no one else, so Savio, it was just like, it was pretty underwhelming, wasn't it? It was just like, really? It was one of those quiet ones. Then how stupid was the breakup of the Outsiders of Slamboree in 1998? Not that stupid, really. I mean, this is wrestling. Is it any more stupid than any number of partnership breakups over the years? You know what I mean? I mean, I don't really get why people would think that was stupid. I mean, it's wrestling. Friends turn on each other all the time in wrestling. I mean, is it any more stupid when Triple H and Shawn Michaels broke up? When Batista broke away from Evolution, or any of that, or even brothers turn on each other? I mean, to be fair, Nash and Hall have both been in the company for about 2 years now, so why not break the Outsiders up, have them feud with each other? I mean, on paper that was kind of interesting, Kevin Nash versus Scott Hall feuding. I know the actual feud and stuff wasn't that good, but the idea in theory was fine. I had no issue with it whatsoever, to be honest with you. Absolutely none. And then across the board was 1998, the greatest year in wrestling history. I think so. I would say definitely, at least in our time, our lifetime of watching wrestling, or like people like me and you who've watched wrestling for the last 20 plus years. So I'd say definitely in that time frame anyway. I mean, you could make an argument for something like 1985 when Vince did the national expansion, the early WrestleMania and all that stuff, Saturday night main events. And on the other side, where you had the NWA was still kicking with Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Magnum TA, the Road Warriors, the Horsemen, etc. But definitely, like, in our time, our generation, I think it was. I mean, you had both companies doing phenomenal business, WWF and WCW. I'll say this was the year that Monday Night Wars was at its closest, because at various times, one time WCW was so far ahead, and then later on the WWF was so far ahead. So this was definitely when all the shit was most competitive. I mean, you look at the business both companies were doing that year. I think there was like something insane, like if you combine the ratings of Raw and Nitro, it was like in the 10s, maybe 11s, something like that. Insane numbers. Pay-per-view buys that year, mostly through the roof. Then of course, along with that, you've had little old ECW chugging along nicely as a third alternative promotion. So yeah, I would definitely agree. Definitely from when I started watching wrestling anyway, 1998 was probably the greatest overall year in wrestling. Then we got Stephen Taylor. Was I the only one who found Jacqueline incredibly hot and wanted to tie me up and torture me? Well, one, you spelled torture wrong, by the way, just to point that out. And Jacqueline was hot as fuck in my opinion. I mean, would I have liked her to torture me? Well, not really, because I'm not really into that. Just normal sex is fine with me. I'm not into hardcore stuff like that. Just successful, nice sexual intercourse is fine. And yeah, Jackie, fucking hell, she had a body to die for as well. To be fair, even fully loaded, I think she had the better bikini, the better body than Sable, but that's my opinion. And hell, you saw at the Hall of Fame last year, right? I still have a pop. I mean, I know she's in her 50s now, but still, she's looking pretty good. I wouldn't mind a pop of Jacqueline now. Then we got, was I the only one who thought Sable wasn't that hot? Like you wouldn't have a pop of her. I mean, yeah, she was fucking stunning. Sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with that one, to be honest with you. Then we got, agree or disagree, Sting's Wolfpack attire ahead of Sting's Crow attire. Now I would disagree with that one. I mean, granted I did like the red and black look for Sting, but just always prefer the black and white Crow Sting, to be honest with you. Then we got, how cool would it be if Nash and Hall came out during the DX invasion? So, assume you mean when they were outside the fans and that, and then Nash and Hall came out of the arena to join DX in that, and yeah, that would have been amazing, but obviously they wouldn't have done that because they would have got fucking. There would have been lawsuits and legal shit and all that, but yeah, it would have been pretty sweet. And then we got Albert Butler. What was your favourite segment from Raw in 1998? Now, not only is this my favourite Raw segment in 1998, it's my favourite Raw segment ever, and not only that, it's my favourite wrestling segment ever, period, and that's of course the night after the 1998 Royal Rumble, Mike Tyson, Stone Cold Steve Austin confrontation. I think I've said that in a few videos before, so I'll go over it again. So, what a moment that was. I mean, that for me was just huge, humongous stuff. So at the time, Mike Tyson, one of the biggest stars in the world in any sports or entertainment genre. And now here he is, Mike Tyson, in the WWF, in a WWF ring. That was awesome in itself, and that was huge at the time. I mean, obviously getting Tyson was really the catalyst for getting all the eyeballs on WrestleMania 14, which led to the WWF's big rise in popularity. And then, of course, not only that, you've got WWF's was getting hotter and hotter throughout 1997, and here we are in 1998. This is a plan to catch up to WCW, invested in Mike Tyson for WrestleMania. And not only is Mike Tyson, here comes Stone Cold Steve Austin, who obviously Stone Cold was rapidly becoming the hottest star in the entire business. I mean, if you're a wrestling fan in 1998, you'll know how hot Stone Cold was. And here we are, Stone Cold and Mike Tyson, and here's Austin talking trash to Mike Tyson. I mean, what? I mean, obviously they marketed Austin as the toughest SOB in the WWF, but Mike Tyson is fucking Mike Tyson, I mean. And here's Austin. Austin don't give a fuck. Austin's talking trash to Mike Tyson. And now Austin's shoving Tyson, and they're trying to get each other, and everyone's stepping in, trying to stop it. It just felt real. And I think, anyway, it just looked and seemed real, and this was all over the news and on newspapers and everything. Everyone was talking about this shit. I mean, obviously for me, like I said before, the best moment ever in the history of Raw. My favourite segment in 1998. My favourite segment of all time. No doubt about it. What are your thoughts on the Bret Hart versus Sting feud? It was okay. But that's the problem. It was just okay. Especially when you consider this was Bret Hart versus Sting. A real WWF versus WCW dream match. I mean, in the few years, I remember like a few years earlier, Bret was a man in the WWF. Sting was a man in WCW. They both used the same submission move. Obviously, Bret the sharpshooter, Sting the Scorpion Deathlock. But it's the same move, obviously just different names. And now here we are, Bret's in WCW. Now we're going to do Bret and Sting, and it just wasn't. It was massively disappointing. Should have been a lot better. I mean, I feel the Halloween Havoc match was just average. Wasn't anything special at all. Just a big disappointment, really, like much of Bret's WCW run, which is sad. Which there's going to be more questions about that in here. Most underrated wrestler, Raven. I'd be probably Raven overall in the business. I mean, Raven had a lot going for him at the time. I mean, the problem with Raven, like obviously WCW had this certain amount of top guys locked. You know, like Hogan, Nash, Hall, Sting, Luger, Savage, Piper, etc., DDP, etc. Obviously Goldberg broke the mold and broke through. So for Raven, he was always destined to be top of the middle, or he was top of the middle, but that's about as far as it. He was never going to break that glass ceiling, but he had a lot going for him. An interesting look, great talker, great, good brawler, all that, good worker overall. Really interesting look, interesting gimmick. And I think it's when he had his little run of DDP, which is as far as he got in WCW. He didn't look out of place in there, did he? I mean, he looked like he was on Page's level and all that. And then, of course, unfortunately for him, but it was probably the right move for the company. He only had a one-day reign as US champion. Of course, he won it at Do you win? I think it would have been Spring Stampede, wouldn't it? It would have been, because it was April. So you won the title of Spring Stampede. Then the next night lost to Goldberg. So I would definitely say Raven for that one. What do you think of the Undertaker's crucifix of Steve Austin? I mean, for me, I had no problem with it, obviously, but I can see if you're like a religious person and all that, a Christian, all that, you're bound to have a problem with that, aren't you? I mean, yeah, they can say it was tied into a symbol and it wasn't proper crucifixion, but come on, who are they kidding? Look, it was a symbol, a cross-like symbol. Of course, it was a mock crucifixion. I mean, so I just feel like it was. Although I thought it was the image looked kind of cool, if you remember, when Austin was on the symbol hiding the image of the Undertaker doing his pose with his eyes rolling the back of the head while Austin was on the symbol. So I kind of like the visual of that, but you're just going to offend religious Christian groups, aren't you, doing that? For me, as far as wrestling goes, I think there's two places you shouldn't really go, and that's race and religion, because you're going to offend people, aren't you? It's that simple. Then, last question, who was better, the Nation or DX? DX, easily, honestly, I don't even, not being rude, but I don't even think that's really a competition or out like that. I mean, it's obvious DX is better than the Nation in pretty much every aspect, so quite easily DX. And then we got Diesel 101 Raw. It was The Rock as IC champion and Austin as WWE champion. Was that the equivalent of 86, 87 when Savage was IC and Hogan was WWE champion? Yeah, because I read these questions like a couple of weeks ago and I got them, and my first thought was I was going to try and compare it to Hogan when Hogan was the world champion, Warrior was the Intercontinental champion, but then I got thinking, not really, because obviously they were both babyfaces at the time, but then I thought, yeah, you're probably right, because obviously Austin was the babyface top world champion, Rock was a heel. Obviously The Rock was possibly going to be the next guy up and coming, so yeah, I think that's a great comparison actually. How would it be, jumping the gun. Biggest missed opportunity of Starrcade 1998, I feel Goldberg for Sting was. Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely think you're right there, especially if they hadn't done it in September on Nitro and it was a first time dream match. Goldberg was the champion, but Sting was a franchise at WCW, babyface versus babyface. Sting's going to try to end the streak. Goldberg's going to try and beat the man most associated with WCW. So yeah, I'll say an honourable mention probably goes to Hollywood Hogan versus Kevin Nash. I feel like that match would have happened at Starrcade, especially the Wolfpack Hollywood storyline. That all NWO, maybe the NWO could have finally culminated for good there, but of course Nash ended the streak, and this was the time Hogan was doing his annoying fake presidential campaign, so we never got it. But I would agree with you, Goldberg versus Sting. There we go. How cool would it be if the Road Warriors after Royal Rumble they went to ECW for the Dudleys? Well, it would have been a lot better than LOD 2000, wouldn't it? But yeah, so when the LOD after Royal Rumble 1998 putting the Outlaws over, and then the teams split up in the ref for a while, and they came back at WrestleMania 14 as Legion of Doom 2000 with Sonny as a manager, and then of course that led to an awful feud of the DOA, the whole angle with Hawk being drunk and all that. And then of course that culminated in a horrible thing with where Droz pushed him off the Titantron. But yeah, so that would have been great. I mean, let's say in an ideal fantasy world, not discounting the fact that Heyman might not have been able to afford the Road Warriors at the time. But I'll say if they went there, I would have liked to see them going back to classic Road Warriors. You know, the all black look that they used to have before they went to WWF and had a bit of more colourful look. So I think they went back to that version of the Road Warriors, the badasses. Obviously as well, with ECW being a smaller company, they used licensed music, so if they went back to ECW, started using the Iron Man theme again, and obviously feeling for Dudleys, who of course the hot heel tag team in ECW at the time. That's a dream. That's a dream tag team feud, isn't it? Really. But yeah, I think that could have been actually really, really sweet stuff. I really do. It would have been a hell of a lot better than LOD 2000. Then we got if WCW did NWO Hollywood versus NWO Wolfpack matches, which would you have rather done? So this is a straight up choice. Outsiders versus Hollywood Hogan and Scott Steiner, or Hollywood Hogan versus Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner versus Scott Hall, in brackets Battle of the Scots. So out of those three choices, I would easily go for Hogan versus Nash. For the reason I explained, I just think that would have been a big match. Obviously, like two of the big stars in the company, been together since the NWO began and all that, and that's how the Nash broke away from Hollywood Hogan, formed the NWO Wolfpack. So I think that would have been the best option, Hogan versus Nash. Then we got would you agree Shawn Michaels was still wrestling? He would have been in the DX Nation, making it equal 5-on-5 men, maybe a 10-man tag face on at SummerSlam, maybe had a 2 match with The Rock, maybe some exchanges on the mic with The Rock. Yeah, probably, I suppose. Although I do wonder if Shawn Michaels would have took that demotion line now, because I think Shawn Michaels would have been a dick if he was still there. I think he would have still been trying to influence Vince to get the belt back in him and stuff like that, but would make sense for Shawn to stay in DX. Obviously, difference is, I'm assuming if he didn't get injured, he would have still been the leader of DX. So you're thinking Michaels and The Rock. I mean, I know The Rock said previously he didn't want to work with Shawn Michaels for personal reasons, but I feel like if he'd pestered him enough to do it, he probably would have went ahead and did it. And I suppose Shawn and Owen should have wrestled at Royal Rumble 1998, but yeah, it would have been nice if Shawn and Owen wrestled after WrestleMania. Obviously, Owen's Brett's brother and all that. So that, yeah, I think so. Then we got, this is a good question. Brandon Alexander, I believe you know how the G1 Climax in New Japan works. I do, yes. Say WWE was block A and WWE was block B. What 10 guys from each promotion would you put in each block? Who would win each block? And who would you have be the ultimate winner? Right, so, big question. So, let's go to WWF block first. So, I'm going to do this, obviously, around the time G1 would happen. So, July/August of 1998. So, those rosters. So, no Shawn Michaels, because he was out. And I can't remember exactly. And obviously, no Ric Flair for WCW. And no Savage for WCW, because this is when Flair was getting sued by Bischoff and Savage was out injured. So let's do the WF first. Number 1, no brainer, Stone Cold Steve Austin, obviously. Number 2, we've got The Undertaker. Number 3, we'll have Mankind. Number 4, Kane. Number 5, The Rock. Number 6, Triple H. Number 7, Ken Shamrock. Number 8, we'll have Owen Hart in there. Right, so 2 spots. Let's have a think. Interesting. Let's have a think. Number 9, X-Pac. Suppose number 10 there, Jeff Jarrett. Put Jeff Jarrett in there. So those are my WF guys. Now, WCW. Obviously, you've got to have Hollywood Hogan in there. That would be insane if not. Then we've got Sting. We'll have Sting in there, of course. Goldberg's got to be in there. Number 3. Number 4, Kevin Nash. Number 5, Bret Hart. Number 6, The Giant. Number 7, Scott Hall. Number 8, Diamond Dallas Page. Have I missed any big names out? I might have missed let's have a think. So, Raven number 9 and number 10, Booker T. So, those guys, and then obviously I want to do one better for you actually. So do you know how the blocks are usually determined on the last day? So I want to do that as well. So the WF one can come down to the last day of the block. Stone Cold versus The Undertaker. Then you have Austin defeat The Undertaker to win the block for the WWF. And then obviously WCW side, you can end up with Goldberg versus Hogan on the last day. Hogan can win Goldberg can win the WCW block. So you got the final now. Austin versus Goldberg. I mean, let's be honest, that was the match in 1998, which you kind of asked as well. So I'll talk about that in a second. So Austin versus Goldberg in the G1 final. Stone Cold defeats Goldberg to win the WWF versus WCW G1 climax. So there you go. And then, obviously, I don't want you to book a whole pay-per-view, but say WWE, WCW and ECW did a one-night only inter-promotional pay-per-view event. What 3 matches would you want to see? So, I'm going to discount ECW because they have none of the matches. So, if I've got to pick 3 and 3 only, so first one, you've got to go with Bret. It's got to be Bret and Vince, hasn't it? I mean, if you had the opportunity to book that match in 1998, I think it would have been something special. So obviously, really, basically, going off the Montreal Screwjob, building all stuff that happened in real life. Remember, this was 1998, not 2010. Things were still raw between the two, so I run raw, get it. So obviously the promos they could have cut on each other were so real, and you're thinking this is going to be vicious. So obviously you think you're gonna believe everything that's going to happen in the match, aren't you? Think, is Bret actually going to beat the shit out of Vince? Is Vince going to try to beat Bret up? So you do that, Bret Hart and Vince McMahon. Then obviously number 2, Undertaker versus Sting. I think even in 1998 that was a massive dream match. That's a match you have to do there. At that time, the one direct constantly Undertaker, the one WCW constantly Sting. Obviously, both dark side, like dark characters. That's the match, isn't it, really? You've got to do that one. And of course, the main event of the show, obviously, 1998, Stone Cold versus Goldberg. I mean, that was the match. If you wrestled a fan in 1998, Stone Cold was a hot star in the WWF. Goldberg was WCW's new hot homegrown star. Both bald head, goatee, boots and tight guys. That's it. That's the match you wanted to see. Austin versus Goldberg. That would have been fucking humongous, really, to be honest. What was the best low mid-card match from each promotion that year? I don't know. I'm not sure about ECW, so I'm going to ECW's Lance Storm, Chris Candido from Heatwave, maybe, but I'm not sure about that. WCW, obviously for these ones, it depends what your interpretation of low mid card is. So I will say something, either one of the first 2 or 3 matches, or anything beyond, like for the WWF, anything beyond the US title, Intercontinental title, sorry, or in WCW's case, below the US title. So for WCW, this depends if you consider this lower mid card or not. So I guess Benoit, Booker T from the Great American Bash. Then WWF, I guess, even though it was big, I saw Triple H Owen Hart for the European title at WrestleMania 14. But that's a hard question, so the answer there might suck, to be honest with you. I personally believe Undertaker Kane at WrestleMania 14 is one of the best built matches in WrestleMania history. Do you agree or disagree with this, and why? I'd say it's one of them, but I wouldn't say it's one of the absolute top 5. But yeah, I'll say it was incredible build up for that match. Top 10 maybe, top 5 no. It's not even, for me, it's not even the best build up to a streak match in my opinion. It's number 2 for me. I just like the Undertaker Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 26 build up that much more. But yeah, I'll say obviously they built it up pretty much directly from October at Bad Blood into WrestleMania. So that's 6 months, and indirectly as far back as June when Paul Bearer revealed Kane was still alive. But yeah, I think it was awesome. Overall, even though Tyson Austin thing was epic, I'll say because of the longer build up and all that, and the fact everything just built perfectly, and this was the first time confrontation between 2 brothers, and how much it did for the Undertaker's character and stuff like that, and Kane, making Kane into a star. I'll say, yeah, I wouldn't know exactly where I would rank it. I would have to really think about that, but probably hovering around the top 10 of all time. I think when I think of elite WrestleMania build-ups, I probably think Hogan Andre at 3, Hogan Savage at 5, Taker Michaels at 26, Yeah, stuff like that really. Maybe even Bret and Austin at 13, but also I wouldn't put it in those category, but I'd say just below that. Then we got Gold Standard 00924. Thoughts on the NWO split into two factions, and you think the Wolfpack could have survived as its own entity as opposed to being associated with the NWO? So first off, yeah, I feel like when you split the NWO up and you got NWO Hollywood, NWO Wolfpack, they kind of watered the storyline down, in my opinion. I mean, that's the general reaction. Just feel like I think a lot of people have said this, but it kind of went this organic, realistic storyline that the NWO was at the start. It's just another wrestling angle. I mean, because obviously now you've got two NWOs, so you've got like 20 to 30 guys in the NWO. They just watered it down a little bit. I mean, I feel like NWO would have been if it was more just a smaller exclusive club. And then, as a matter of fact, I feel like Wolfpack would have been a lot better not being associated with NWO. So say Nash broke off from Hogan and formed his group and just called them the Wolfpack. Same music and all that. They could have even had a red and black look, but just called themselves the Wolfpack. The Wolfpack. I think that would have been a lot better, and to be fair, I would have had a lot less problem with the likes of Sting and Luger and that joining. Because that's one of the big things I hated about it. I mean, you had Luger and Sting on the WCW side for coming up to 2 years now, and then all of a sudden, especially Sting, like the battle Sting's out of the NWO. And now, I know it wasn't it wasn't aligned with Hogan, but I just did not like Sting being the NWO Wolfpack at all, and Luger as well. And Savage I understood because he was already in NWO Hollywood, fell out of Hogan and all that, and wasn't a WCW guy to begin with. So yeah, I do honestly feel like if it was just the Wolfpack, I think I would have had a lot less problem with that storyline. I would have liked it a lot more. But yeah, then with a rekindled Austin versus Owen feud, if interest you as a big time main event, in theory, yeah, but what do you replace it with, if that makes sense? So let's look at the feuds Austin had as a main event. So would you have Owen and Austin over Austin versus Dude Love in April and May? I don't think so. With it Owen and Austin, would you replace that with Austin and Kane going to King of the Ring? Again, no, not for me. And then would you have Owen and Austin replace Austin and The Undertaker for SummerSlam? Again, not for me. So would Austin and Owen have been a good feud? Probably. But I would say the feuds that they actually did would have been better. And that's simple, really. Now it's good. It's good. You think today's WWE could take notes from 1998 when it came to the main event scene? Prior to the Rock and Triple H's plus 4 wrestlers dominated division. Austin, Foley, Taker and Kane. While not a lot of depth, how do you think they managed to keep the feuds fresh and as long as he did? So yeah, you're right about that. I mean, obviously, so yeah, really, as hot as the main event scene was from spring to late summer, early autumn, it was really all about 4 guys, wasn't it? Austin, Foley, Undertaker and Kane. And you're right, I think WWE, the way it's structured now, would really struggle with this. Because obviously, when WWE does similar things now, what they do is have the guys just wrestle each other over and over again. But I feel like with 99, I think 99 obviously benefited because all you had in 1998 was 2 hours of Raw every week and a pay-per-view at the end of the month. Where now, let's say right before the brand split anyway, you had 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, and then a pay-per-view. Obviously now, so there was obviously, they had less TV time, so they were able to stretch it out a bit longer, and I just feel like WWF was creative about it. They really were. I feel like they were creative because obviously you had Austin and Dude Love for 2 months, then Austin and Kane, then obviously I think they did a great job what they did of Fully Loaded by breaking it up and having a tag team match with Austin the Undertaker versus Kane and Mankind. I mean, so for example, if they could have done Austin versus Kane and Undertaker versus Mankind again, but that would have been as good. Then of course we got Austin the Undertaker at SummerSlam, which, if you think about it, with with the fact they had the tag matches fully loaded, they had pretty much 2 solid months to build that match. Then of course after that, Mankind faded out and it just became about Austin versus The Undertaker and Kane. And I feel like Vince was a great guy, a great authority figure to have as well, because he was involved as well, because he was obviously feuding with Austin, and he was having problems with The Undertaker. Then it was him who was trying to get to the bottom of the conspiracy theory. The Undertaker and Kane were in cahoots and all that, going to SummerSlam. So yeah, I just feel like, I feel like they really could take notice of that. Then what was your reaction when Sting spoke for the first time since transitioning to the Crow gimmick? I'm going to put my hands up here and maybe be a bit embarrassed. I don't remember. I'm going to be honest, I thought Sting had spoken in 1997, but if you say he spoke for the first time in 1998, I'll take your word for it, but I honestly can't remember that. I'm sorry, that's maybe a bit embarrassing, but yeah, honestly, I just don't remember it. Then, what if DDP had been the one to end Goldberg's undefeated streak of Halloween Havoc? How do you think viewers at home would have reacted if the pay-per-view cut off like it did to not witness this monumental feat? Wow! Joe, I'd never thought of it like that before. I mean, it's being debated if DDP should have ended the streak that night, and maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't, but I'd never really thought of it from the angle of, oh shit, if they'd done this, then pay-per-view audience would have missed it. But you're absolutely right when you say that. Oh wow, yeah, if that night could have been any more of a disaster with the way the pay-per-view feed cut off right as the main event was beginning, imagine the outrage if we'd missed that monumental moment. Wow. Yeah, that would have made the disastrous situation even worse. Then of course they would have had to show that free on Nitro, which I'm sure would have got a lot of criticism. They had to show Goldberg's streak ended on free pay-per-view, free TV instead of pay-per-view. So, oh wow, I didn't really think of it like that, but yeah, you're probably right. There we go, Greedy Selfish 97. If they had a traditional Survivor Series 4 vs 4 tag match in 1998, who do you think the two teams would have been and who would be in them? I mean, obviously with the tournament you couldn't really do that because pretty much everyone who was worth something was booked in that match. So I guess, I don't know, I'm going to have to put my hand and say I don't know about that, because who would you take out of the tournament for the sake of doing this, really, if that makes sense? And if you take someone out, who would you put in to replace them? So I suppose, obviously, you could do that tag match, make the Headbangers, Mark Henry and D'Lo against the New Age Outlaws. You could have put China in there with the Outlaws, and I can't really think of a fourth person to be on that team, especially like someone who, I don't know, Edge? Maybe someone like Edge or someone like that. Just a thought. I don't know, to be honest with you. Now, go on. You consider 1998 to be Macho Man Randy Savage's last good in-ring year. I'd say that was probably 1997. I mean, I think because obviously he got injured in early 1998 then. But he was wrestling for a few months with a big knee injury, so don't think he really had a good in-ring year in 1998. I mean, obviously he had that match with Luger, it sold out. The match with Hogan at Uncensored was a terrible main event in my opinion. Really awful. Then of course, he had two good matches that year. One with Brett at Slamboree, and one with Sting at Spring Stampede. So no, I would disagree. I would say 1997 was Savage's last real good year in the ring. And fought an Owen Hart's Blackheart gimmick. Thought it could have been something really good. I mean, if you remember when it kicked off at the right end of 1997, it was all about confronting Vince and all that. Obviously, then of course he was going after DX. But I think you look at it, really was like a rebellious type character. But obviously that's what Stone Cold Steve Austin was. So it's kind of bad time for Owen. And I think to get it really over, Owen really needed to wrestle Shawn Michaels. But then, of course, instead of Shawn Michaels, he went to a feud with Triple H, which gave us the message this was just a mid-card gimmick. And of course, after that, it just wasn't great. It could have been good, but it wasn't that great. I will say, obviously, remember this Owen Hart, love you, but your attempt at growing a beard was awful, by the way. Just saying. I mean, yeah, you couldn't really grow a good beard, could you, Owen? But yeah, I feel it was alright. I mean, definitely wasn't one of the best parts of Owen's career. I feel it could have been a lot better than it was. I mean, it had potential, but it never really fulfilled that potential. What's the most underrated pay-per-view for the WCW and ECW? I'm gonna have to put my hands up for a second and say I've only ever actually seen one ECW pay-per-view from 1998 in full, and that's Heatwave 98. So I haven't actually seen any of the rest. So I'm gonna put my hands up there and just admit that. So underrated for WCW, Slamboree, maybe. No, Spring Stars. You had Goldberg and Saturn, Eddie Guerrero, Ultimo Dragon. What else do we have? Bret and Savage. Benoit versus Finlay. So probably that. And as far as WWF, Judgment Day was pretty underrated pay-per-view. Definitely one of the better B pay-per-views of that year. Definitely. I mean, you had some good matches on there, such as Goldust versus Val Venus, Taka Michinoku versus Christian, X-Pac versus D'Lo for the European title really stole the show in my opinion. Then a really underrated gem between Mankind and Ken Shamrock for the Intercontinental title. Main event kind of sucked, but it set up Vince Fire in Austin and all that. So yeah, I'd say Judgment Day for the WWF side of things. And what have we got? Oh, no, who were the most underrated performers from the WWF, WCW, ECW? So, I'll just do a few. Of course, WCW, before I mention Raven, definitely I'll still go for that as most underrated. Fitz Finlay, probably. I mean, a lot of the attention was like some Benoit, Guerrero, people like that, Jericho, Booker T. But Finlay was always a solid worker. I mean, he had some good matches with Booker T. Really physical battles with Chris Benoit. He didn't really get much of a fair shake in WCW because roster was bloated and all that, so he never really... I think he might have been television champion at least once. Can't remember. Probably was. Then I'll say Cruz, Ultimo Dragon, of course. A lot of the attention goes on like Jericho, Malenko, Rey Mysterio, who do Guerrero that year, had a really good year. But until he got injured, Ultimo Dragon was pretty much wrestling as well as he ever had before. Really underrated guy in that division, definitely. Always found Scott Norton to be fairly underrated. I mean, he was really believable as a badass, good power guy and all that. Had a good look and all that. Never really, wasn't a terrible wrestler. I mean, I wouldn't say he was a good worker, but he definitely wasn't terrible, like a Bryan Adams or a Horace Hogan would be. So always kind of like Scott Norton. Thought he was pretty good. Who else? I suppose obviously I'll say Kidman. Yeah, I think Kidman really got more over in 1999. But like the last few months of 1998, he was doing some really good stuff. Really underrated. I mean, looking back now, like Kidman's probably one of the more underrated WCW cruiserweights ever. Because when you think of that division, you think of the likes of Ray, Eddie, Malenko, Jericho, Juventud, etc. Billy Kidman gets forgotten about a little bit. WWF, I'll probably go with Val Venus for that one. Val had a lot going for him. Great gimmick for the time, although kind of held him back later. Good size, good look, good worker, good talker. Youth, he was pretty good. Then obviously Al Snow. Definitely when you think of underrated talent, you've got to think of Al Snow. I mean, he always had solid matches. I mean, didn't always have great matches, but you always knew you get a solid performance out of them. Experience, decent size, good work. I mean, obviously the gimmick was over with head and all that, so Al Snow, and then who got Too Much were probably underrated, and before they became too cool, but they were Too Much, Too Hot Too Sexy Brian Christopher, Too Hot Scott Taylor. They were all solid workers at the time. D'Lo Brown, obviously, I feel like very overlooked guy. I mean, really had a lot of potential in 98, 99. Was a really good worker. decent talk. I wouldn't say he was a fantastic promo guy. I also thought the chest protector thing was an interesting little gimmick he had going. So that ECW. In '98, not so much later on, but obviously Jerry Lynn, I feel like he was just a great workhorse for the company, really. And obviously he had a great good match, was just incredible. Lance Storm, people like that. In a promotion which had a lot of brawlers and tables and all that shit, Jerry Lynn was just a wrestler, and that's how he made his name, being a great wrestler. Little Guido, he's another one. Obviously he had a bit more success in '99, 2000, but obviously another very solid worker. I mean, really liked his well. He's good in ECW. Little Guido, Doran and Roadkill, I think they were around in 1998. Really underrated team. So those guys really. Then we got the variety vendor. This was Ken Shamrock's peak year. Do you think he could have main evented if given the shot? I think Shamrock versus Austin, as in Vince's chosen, would have drew. World's Dangerous Man versus World's Toughest SOB. Yeah, Shamrock was good enough to main event, definitely. I would definitely say he was. However, you got to remember, look at the competition at the time. I mean, you had Austin, you had Taker, you had Kane, you had Mankind, you had The Rock, you had Triple H. Was Shamrock better than them? Not really, and that was kind of the problem with him. I feel like Shamrock would be a much bigger star today. If Shamrock came through or in the last few years, obviously with like less stars to the roster, the UFC legitimacy being more appreciated, I feel like he would have been a much bigger star in WWE now than what he was then. And I think it's just simple. As good as Shamrock was, and he was good, and yeah, he was good enough to main event, but it's just the guys above him were better. It's that simple, really. How would you book Flair and the WF at this time if he signed, which was rumoured to almost happen? I'm not sure. It's interesting because yeah, that's a big rumour that Flair was on course to come back to the WWE in 1998 after he's being sued by Eric Bischoff. That of course didn't pan out. And obviously Ric Flair resigned with the company later that year. So if it came, that would have been, I don't know, I'm not sure how successful Ric Flair would have been, because obviously the Attitude Era was like the new era and all that, all these young aggressive guys and all that, and here's Ric Flair who was pushing 50 even then. Obviously, and he comes out, like, would he fit in facing likes of Austin, Rock and all that? Suppose would have been interesting. I think the best bet would have been to have Flair be in Vince's corporate stable. Flair be one of Vince's chosen guys to go up against Austin. So I think at least initially you got to put Flair in a big spot because of he's Ric Flair. So I think initially Flair and Austin, that could be interesting. And I suppose after that, yeah, you have him like, obviously don't like bury him or anything, but make him like a good upper mid carder, like facing like The Rock. Like, having some of The Rock's first big matches, obviously you use the veteran Flair to teach The Rock how to work, give The Rock some credibility by having him beat Ric Flair and stuff like that. Ric Flair versus Mankind or Cactus Jack or Doolove or whoever the fuck he was going to call himself. Obviously they could have, because obviously the real life heat between Flair and Foley from the WCW days, they could have brought that up and had an interesting feud. Maybe give Flair the Intercontinental title, facing like the Ken Shamrock and people like that. Maybe even Flair going after Triple H at some point during the year. I mean, that would be interesting. So yeah, if Shawn hadn't retired, what do you think his year would have been like? That's an interesting one. I'm not sure. It's really hard to predict that. You're thinking Shawn and Austin would have carried on feuding, and Austin wouldn't have feuded with Dude Love. So you're thinking Austin might as well have at least one more rematch for the title, maybe two. Then so like from Unforgiven to Over the Edge, maybe it could have been Shawn and Austin both times. You'd like to think that Shawn Michaels wouldn't be a dick and want the title back, but he might have done. Then after that, you could start. Obviously, you could maybe have DX in the Nation, Shawn be a part of that. Like I said, like someone asked the question earlier, or alternatively, you can have a tension between Triple H and Shawn Michaels, have the new DX, like X-Pac Outlaws Triple H, kick Shawn Michaels out of DX, that they're the new guys in DX, and you do Shawn and Triple H through the summer. So it's just kind of interesting how little things like what we've said here, like Flair coming in, Shawn not retiring, just how different little things like that would have made WWF in 1988. It's really interesting, isn't it? Well, I think it is anyway. I was a fan of Jackal and the Kurgan. You had the Devil in a Suit and the Mind Control. Do you think they really dropped the ball with them? Knocked Buck Kurgan on top, but as a special retraction rather than put him in a joke fashion. I've had Kurgan. I remember at the time, like when I was a kid, thinking Kurgan would be a big star, because obviously Kurgan was 7 feet tall and all that, and usually being a 7-foot guy means you get a main event push. But I think looking back, you had the 7-foot monster healing Kurgan, but at the same time you had this, well, not actually 7 foot, they build him as 7 foot, the 7-foot monster healing Kane. So I feel like obviously pushing Kane as a priority and never really happened for Kurgan. The Jackal, I wasn't that big a fan of the Jackal, to be honest with you. I thought he was just okay at best, really. I don't think there was anything special about him at all, so didn't really mind him fading out the WWF. But yeah, they probably could have done something better with Kurgan than putting him in the Oddities. I mean, let's be honest, the Oddities was awful. I mean, I've not really explained how bad that was, do I, to be honest. How about this? Oh, after Tyson, Austin pretty much killed the leader of DX. Why didn't Triple H go after Austin? You'd think they'd have unfinished business. I don't know the answer, so I don't know why that's the case. So yeah, I do agree that maybe it would have made sense for Triple H to go after Austin, but I suppose you had the idea of going to Austin McMahon and having a Dude Love as Austin's opponent, Vince's corporate guy. And I suppose that obviously around this time, maybe a little bit later, DX turned babyface. So I wonder if they were already thinking of turning DX babyface down the line. So they didn't want to have Triple H going after Austin. So that could be it. So I don't actually know the answer to that. I'm just guessing, to be honest. There we go. Jay Shepperson, top 5 best Raws. Good question. I'm not sure. Guess 5, the night after Survivor Series, where The Rock revealed to the fans why he turned on them and joined the corporation. Austin got his title shot against The Rock in the main event. Vince recruited Ken Shamrock to the corporation that night, and then of course it ended in a DQ where Undertaker came out and hit Austin over the head of a shovel. So that one. This is only because I watched it like a week ago, July the 6th. This featured the Nation DX parody, but also set up SummerSlam with Austin McMahon, Mankind, Kane, The Undertaker, the big triple threat match at the end, where Undertaker was mysteriously not there. Then it was going to be Mankind and Kane. Kane pinned Mankind, but they took the mask off, and it was the Undertaker in Kane's clothes. Undertaker became no one contender, and I'll say third. Night after King of the Ring, Austin Kane main event. Austin gets his rematch from the King of the Ring, beats Kane to win the title back. Number 2, April the 13th, the night that WWF won the round against WCW. Obviously that was the one where the entire night build up to Austin versus McMahon for the title, but then Dude Love ruined the whole thing. The match ended up not happening, and it went off the air with Dude Love beating the shit out of Austin. And of course, number 1, and this isn't just the best Raw 98, it's the best Raw ever, the night after WrestleMania 14. I've explained this in other videos before, but I even did a review of it. So epic Raw in my opinion. I mean, you had obviously Stone Cold McMahon feud officially launching after seeds being planted for several months, where Vince gave Austin the option of the easy way or the hard way. Then Austin went with the hard way and stood to Vince again. And the new DX forming with X-Pac returning to the WWF to join up with Triple H, and then later on that night the New Age Outlaws also joined up with them to form the new DX. The Rock finally kicking Farouk out of the Nation of Domination and officially become the leader of the Nation of Domination. So many great storylines were set up that night, and then obviously that later, just 2 weeks later, the Douref finally beating WCW in the ratings. There we go. Best feud in brackets, not Austin versus McMahon. So Austin Taker probably. Yeah, I'll go with Austin the Undertaker in that case. If I can't use Austin versus McMahon, of course, like all a huge build up to SummerSlam, Highway to Hell and all that. So yeah, we'll go with Austin the Undertaker. Best built up pay-per-view. So overall, like for match, it's got to be WrestleMania 14, hasn't it? I mean, arguably SummerSlam 1998, the top two. Well, at least the main event, Austin Undertaker, was better built up match. But you look at I'll give you a few examples. So obviously, the Austin Tyson Michaels main event, that speaks for itself. Undertaker Kane, I mean, awesome build up there. I mean, you had a great mid card feud of The Rock and Ken Shamrock, the build up for the Intercontinental title. Triple H and Owen Hart, that also had great build up. New Age Outlaws versus Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, and even the mixed tag match between Mero and Sable versus Luna and Goldust. That was a really good build up, especially the build up, like the feud between Luna and Sable, and then of course like the tension between Mero and Sable and all that. But they banded together for this tag match. Really good stuff. Forcing a general change throughout 1998 to do I watched it recently, noticed a hell of a lot of change. But I'd argue more changes took place in 1997, I mean. But I think as far as the changes, I think it was just them putting the formula together, I mean. Obviously the formula, like the attitude, it doesn't happen overnight, so I'll say a little, obviously like the presentation of the show, I'll say the wrestling didn't matter as much on TV as the year gone on. It was more about the segments and the storylines, and just the evolution of Austin versus McMahon. I mean, you can see stuff like the New Age Outlaws putting the pieces together to become a big popular act, from heels to baby faces. You saw Triple H finding himself more that year. I mean, obviously he'd been the Blue Blood Hunter Hearst Helmsley for a few years, as he morphed into Triple H in the late 1997, but with a sidekick to Shawn Michaels, and obviously with Shawn gone, that gave Triple H more freedom to find himself as a character. Even The Rock, I mean, you watch it and you see The Rock's catch, like he starts with the odd catchphrase like, you smell what The Rock is cooking, know your role, jabroni and all that. You just see The Rock getting more and more confident as the years goes on. And so yeah, I think it's really just, they were putting the pieces of the puzzle together throughout the year, type thing. And we got Honor of Sediata was Austin versus The Undertaker at SummerSlam, the best built match of 1998. I think so. I mean, in my opinion, yes, but it's definitely, you could definitely argue either that Undertaker versus Kane at WrestleMania, or Austin Michaels at WrestleMania as well. But I'll say watch the build up and say the night after Over the Edge, where Undertaker cuts that epic promo on Vince and all that, the work shoot promo, and then obviously building up to the King of the Ring, where we see Undertaker becoming more evil and sadistic as time goes on, especially after McMahon challenges them. Then obviously Austin and Kane, Austin Taker busted Austin open to give Kane the title. Obviously, obvious explanation is Undertaker didn't want his brother to set himself on fire, and then after that, Undertaker becomes the number one contender. The whole story: are Undertaker and Kane in cahoots, or are they not? And it turns out that they are. And then, yeah, so just that match was epically built up. I mean, that match felt bigger than most WrestleMania main events, in my opinion. And I'm pretty sure SummerSlam 1998 is the highest SummerSlam buy rate ever as well. So there is that. Then forcing the state from Kevin Nash, the fans would turn on Goldberg, and that's why the streak had to end. I don't really agree with that. I mean, I feel like that's just Nash giving himself an excuse to have done it. I mean, when he says fans would turn on Goldberg worthy, I mean, he cites some examples like how in like up north in WWF towns, fans would chanting against Goldberg and chanting for Diesel and Razor. But I only feel like fans are really turning on him. Well, they weren't really turning on him, really, have they? It's just the fact they were in traditional WWF cities, and obviously those fans knew Kevin Nash and Scott Hall when they were Diesel and Razor Ramon. So obviously you watch like all these shows, and it seems to me like Goldberg was just getting hotter and hotter. He was over as he ever was. I don't really see the evidence of fans turn on Goldberg that much. I mean, obviously not everybody liked him, but I just feel like that's a convenient excuse. I don't really buy that, to be honest with you. Was Mick Foley the best performer in 1998? In ring, yeah, I think, especially the ref anyway. Obviously, stuff with him and Terry Funk against the New Age Outlaws. Both matches with Austin and pay-per-view. Hell in a Cell with The Undertaker. Some of his matches with The Rock. So yeah, I'll probably go along with that one. Probably Mick Foley. Was DDP's 1998 better than 1997? Yeah, as a performer, yes, I think it was. I think like his matches were definitely. I mean, great matches with Benoit, triple threat with Benoit and Raven, matches with Raven. Had that. Yeah, actually, do you know what? Fuck it. Yeah, it was. Of course, it was because he was. I think he obviously 1997 was a great year. That feud of Savage and all that. But I feel like he cemented himself as the main eventer in 1998 because I forgot all about the shit. 2 back-to-back pay-per-views. I mean, granted these main events suck, but they were huge for Page at the time. And of course, DDP and Karl Malone versus Hogan and Dennis Rodman, Bash at the Beach, and then Hogan and Bischoff versus DDP and Jay Leno at Road Wild, and then of course he had his first singles pay-per-view main event with Goldberg at Halloween Havoc, and that was an awesome match as well. So yeah, fuck it, yeah, I would say 98 was a better year, definitely. Was RVD's TV title reign the highlight of ECW that year? Yeah, I think so. I can't really think of anything else. I mean, the only other thing I can think, maybe Taz's push towards the world title, which he won in January 1999. But yeah, I'll say overall RVD's ECW title reign probably was. I mean, there were some awesome matches in there. And RVD was just so over at the time, so yeah, I'd probably say it was. And then we got Owen Peterson. Do you think the NWO should have dissolved in 1998 instead of keeping it dominant? Yeah, I do. I mean, I really do. I mean, I can understand if people disagree, but I just feel like every great storyline or every great character has a shelf life. I feel like by 1998, NWO was heading the end of there. I mean, that was a problem, like, especially with the WF was coming back. I think WCW needed to rebuild the next generation. But they just kept pushing the NWO. Then we got stuff like NWO Hollywood, NWO Wolfpack and all that. So yeah, I feel like after Starrcade 1997, obviously that didn't go well, but I feel like because first half of 1998 they should have really been building towards the end of the NWO, because they're currently in 1999 and they just kind of died a death there, which was sad. But yeah, I definitely think so. Do you think WWF could have used Dan Severn better? Yeah, they could have used him better. I think that's fair, but also you got to remember, you got to think about Dan Severn. I mean, as great as Dan Severn was physically, he really didn't have any personality at all. But I do agree that they could have. Obviously, I don't think Dan Severn should have been a top guy, but they definitely could have done a better job of emphasising Dan the Beast Severn's strengths, which was he was just that, a beast. I mean, as far as legitimacy goes, I mean, how can you argue with him? Big star in the early UFC, won all the amateur championships in wrestling that he could win. He's just a bad motherfucker, and I've always considered Dan Severn the non-badass as looking as badass. And what I mean by that is he's tough as shit, but he doesn't actually look that tough at all. I mean, he looks like a school teacher, but when you take the suit off now, he's actually one of the most legit guys you can find. He's just a real badass motherfucker. So I suppose you could have emphasised that, gave him a manager to do his talk. I mean, they had Jim Cornette manage him for a bit, didn't they? So why didn't they just stick with that? I mean, Cornette could have done the talking, Severn could have done the asking. Oh, a bit like Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, isn't it? But I think one of the biggest missed opportunities, what they could have had Remember the Lions Den match at SummerSlam 98 with Shamrock and Owen Hart? So what if instead they built Shamrock and Severin going off the UFC past? If I remember right, he had 2 fights in the UFC. Shamrock won 1, Severin won 1. So what if they built that and then built the match to look like a shoot? A bit like how UFWI in Japan did it, where it was worked, yes, but they made it look super realistic and made it look like a real fight. So I think they could have done something like that, having Shamrock and Severin have a feud like that, and then what? Forcing Owen Hart's 1998 run wasn't bad, but was it was great either. I feel like, yeah, I just feel like after the Attitude Era started, Owen Hart didn't really fit in anymore. But I'll say more so in 99, sorry, he's starting to get a bit irrelevant. But I suppose the Blackheart thing was alright. I thought it was okay. I think the feud of Triple H was a good mid-card feud, but it was just that, a mid-card feud. And of course, not a big fan of Owen Hart joining Nation Domination. Just felt like that was a bit stupid, to be honest with you. And of course, I think the Owen Shamrock was a good little mid-card feud. That was quite enjoyable. And of course, after that, this is when it gets a bit cringy. When he did the angle where they did the thing where the Owen drive, where the same power drive did to Austin on Dan Severn. Although this time Severn's neck wasn't actually broken, but they pretended like it was. Then they had Owen Hart announce his retirement, and then the Blue Blazer came back, and that's not very nice to watch now, is it? I mean, remember when I reviewed the pilot episode of SmackDown a few weeks ago, and the Blue Blazer was on that, and it's hard to watch because you know how it all ended for him. So yeah, it wasn't one of his best years by any means. So I think Owen's best years were 94, 97, maybe 96. So yeah, so obviously Owen Crews went on a slow downhill slide after Montreal, all that, and staying with the WWF. How dumb was it to have Brett joined forces with Hogan instead of feuding with him? Very dumb. I mean, come on. I really wasn't a big fan when Bret Hart joined the NWO early on in his career. Joining with Hogan, I just feel like the money was in Hart and Hogan as a rivalry, which of course that was one of the biggest missed opportunities of 1998 as well for WCW. Obviously, as a Bret Hart fan, I was quite disgusted with how Bret's WCW run went, and just feel like Bret and Hogan would have been huge in 1998, and that was definitely the route they should have went down. But then of course they had Bret and Hogan's allies, which I just hated. I hated it, to be honest, I'm not going to lie. Then your answer. Between WWF and WCW, which promotion had the better pay-per-view each month? So we'll start with January, obviously, and I would have to give the WCW there. I think Sold Out was a better pay-per-view than Royal Rumble. February, again, WCW's got to win this round, I think, as well. What was it? Super Brawl 8 was better than No Way Out. Then we have March, of course, then WWF wins one. WrestleMania 14 was better than Uncensored. All they were both great pay-per-views, actually. Then April, upset WCW wins this one with Spring Stampede being better than Unforgiven. May, again, I'll go with WCW. I would say Slamboree is better than Over the Edge. And then we get June, where I think WWF takes one here. King of the Ring was better than Great American Bash. July, again, I'll go with the WWF there. Fully Loaded was better than Bash at the Beach. August, easily the WWF. SummerSlam was a better pay-per-view than Road Wild. September, WWF streak continues, I would say, what do you call it? Forgot the name of it now. Breakdown was better than fucking Fall Brawl. I could not remember the name of the pay-per-view. It saved my life there. But I'll say WWF streak continued in October, with Judgment Day being better than Halloween Havoc. Even November, I'll say WWF is better there. Survivor Series better than World War 3. But WCW capped the year for the victory, where I feel like Starrcade was the better pay. Well, it should have been, really, because it was the top pay-per-view of the year. Starrcade was the better pay-per-view than Rock Bottom. Then we got Prince of Strong Style 9v2. Hidden Gems and Classics from 1998. Why do you ask this question every single one? But I want to keep doing it. So ECW, we'll quickly go through them. I would say, because I haven't seen a ton of I haven't seen a lot of that. Yeah, I've seen like certain matches and that. Candido Landstorm from Heatwave, very good match. Just Incredible Jerry Lynn, also from Heatwave, liked that match a lot. The match we've talked about before with RVD and Jerry Lynn from Hardcore TV, which aired on the day you were born. Actually, I think we've discussed that, haven't we? So RVD Jerry Lynn from August of 1998. Yeah, so like you said, the day you were born. Trying to think. No, I can't think of any more. So WCW, so I'll try and do it chronologically as well. So trying to think of what happened on Sold Out. Benoit versus Raven. I mean, obviously we talk about the triple threat match with DD. Oh, what the fuck! Sorry, something happened on my phone there. I fucked it up. Right. We'll try that again. So Benoit, DD, no fucking hell. Right. Sorry, I've just completely lost my train of thought. Chris Benoit versus Raven from Sold Out. That was awesome. Booker T versus Rick Martel. I've appeared. I think it was it Uncensored maybe? I think they had a match at Uncensored. So any of those matches for the TV title. Booker T versus Eddie Guerrero. Was that from Uncensored? I can't remember. Bret Hart versus Kurt Hennig. That was definitely from Uncensored. I know that one. Benoit, Booker T. Before the Best of 7 series, you had a very good match at Spring Stampede that year. Spring Stampede 1998. Ultimo Dragon versus Chavo Guerrero. They had a very good match on that same show. Chris Benoit, Fit Finlay from Slamboree opener. That was just a stiff, believable match. Enjoyed that one a lot. Really did like that one. Juventud versus Kidman, the night after Fall Brawl, where Kidman won the Cruiserweight title. That was an awesome match. I think they also had another great match at Fall Brawl that year. So yeah, then do it ref. Owen Hart versus Shawn Michaels from I think it was one of the first Raws in 1998. If I'm not mistaken, that was Shawn's last televised free TV match of that initial run. So instead of having a match at Raw, they had a pretty good match on Raw. The date escapes me, but it was a little bit before. I think it was either first or second Raw of 1998. Rock versus Shamrock from Royal Rumble 1998. Really like the Rock and Shamrock's chemistry. Just thought really great chemistry there between those two. To No Way Out. I also thought that main event actually for No Way Out was a really good match. Great match actually. Kind of gets forgotten about. Yeah, it's probably the most underrated match in 1988. Austin, Owen Hart, Cactus Jack, Terry Funk versus Triple H, Savio Vega, the New Age Outlaws, and of course Owen Hart and Triple H at WrestleMania. Really underrated match. Probably the most underrated match in WrestleMania history, in my opinion. Obviously, the attention that night was on Austin, Michaels, and then Taker and Kane. But that match might have been the best wrestling match of the entire show. Not best match, but best wrestling match, if that makes sense. How about a 6-man tag it over the Edge Nation versus DX? Triple H and the Outlaws versus, I think it was D'Lo, Cameron? It must have been because the Rock fought Farouk. So D'Lo, Cameron, Mark Henry. That was it. No, it wasn't. Owen Hart was in it. D'Lo's in it, but I can't remember who it was out of Cameron, Mark Henry. One of those guys that were in it. One wasn't. I totally forgot which one it was. Rock and Ken Shamrock King of the Ring final. I loved that. That was probably the best Rock Shamrock match they had. Loved that. I liked that match a lot. Not so much a great match, but a cool match anyway. The Stu Hart's Dungeon match is fully loaded between Ken Shamrock and Owen Hart, just with a completely different setting and a totally different kind of match that we got. I enjoyed it anyway. Then we've got a SummerSlam, couple from SummerSlam. Well, I'll pick two out from SummerSlam. D'Lo Brown versus Val Venus from European title opener. Then we got X-Pac and Jeff Jarrett hair versus hair match. Edge versus Owen Hart from Breakdown. If you haven't seen that match, seek it out. It's one of those cool dream matches that actually happened, of course. Edge eventually became a big star, but not the so it was like the start of Edge's career, near the end of Owen's career. So they had that match. It was in Canada as well, which is awesome. Also Vader versus Bradshaw from Breakdown. If you like just two big rugged bastards smacking the shit out of each other, I think you'll like that match. I did anyway. I thought it was really good. Well, not a great match, but it was entertaining anyway. Judgment Day, Tucker versus Christian. That was Christian's first televised match of the WWF, and he won the light heavyweight title. So that's a match worth seeking out. And that's about all I can think of at the moment. Better Bam Bam Bigelow versus Taz spot. Living Dangerously 1998 or Heatwave 1998. Gotta go with the Living Dangerously because obviously that was the original spot. And obviously the second spot was cool. It was kind of copying that spot. So people don't know what the Living Dangerously 1998 spot was. And this was awesome. Taz and Bam Bam Bigelow for the television title. Obviously Taz is a lot smaller than Bam Bam. Taz is on Bam Bam's back, giving him the Taz mission. Bam Bam can't break the hold, so what Bam Bam Bigelow does is jump down, so all of his weight lands on Taz. But however, they did the spot where they went through the ring and had a big massive hole in the ring. So Taz and Bam Bam went through the ring, kind of similar to a year later when the Big Show chokeslammed the Undertaker through the ring. So a similar spot to that. And I imagine that spot was probably stolen because someone in WF Creative had saw that ECW moment. And it was a cool visual. I mean, looked like Taz should have been dead. I mean, he'd had a nearly 400-pound guy landing on him. They broke the ring. And then the visual of Bam Bam getting out of the hole first, drags Taz up, pins Taz to become the new ECW champion. Yeah, that spot, that's going to be a top 15 ECW moment ever, that, to be honest with you. Then we've got, speaking of Heatwave, Paul Heyman was asked about which wrestlers he could have got a book, and his answer was Misawa and Kobashi. How influential would a Misawa versus Kobashi match at Heatwave would have been to those who had never seen All Japan at the time, such as guys like Mysterio, Punk, no, not Mysterio, Psychosis, and the Michinoku Pro guys did before them. So yeah, going back to that, I mean, what you're referring to, there was a thing on the network, like a few years ago now, Heyman and Joey Styles, there was a show about ECW, and that was one of the questions. And Paul Heyman said that if you could have got Misawa and Kobashi, and Heyman claims, and obviously this is Paul Heyman, so this might be complete nonsense, so it might not be true, but he claims he was close to getting Misawa versus Kobashi for Heatwave 1998. I mean, obviously there was Japanese influence on that show. There was Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome from FMW, and Hayabusa and Jinsei Sasaki, aka Hakushi, were also on that show. But wow, but I could imagine that match blowing the roof off whatever arena they were in that night. I think the ECW fans would have loved it. I think it would have been a lot similar to like when Kenta Kobashi went to Ring of Honor to fight Samoa Joe, or I think he did Kenta versus Misawa in 2007, didn't he? So, I mean, I've never seen a single Misawa versus Kobashi matches, but all Japan fans assure me that they are amazing. So I imagine if he did it in ECW in America, it probably would have been one of the best matches of 1998. It would have been huge. Just imagine it then. Bret Hart was booked better in WCW. Would you watch a little more of the product at the time, just for him? Yeah, I'd say obviously it's all hypothetical. It was 19 years ago now, so I can't say for sure, but yeah, I'd say I probably would. I probably would have been more inclined to watch the product a bit more if Brett hadn't have been wasted like he was. Although at the same time, the Duref was just getting so good at the time that I would have, because it would have been harder back then. Because if you remember, it's not like now where you can just watch Raw the next day on any random site or stuff like that. You either had to watch the show or record it on VCR. Set your VCR off, and that's how you watch wrestling. So I probably would have done if I found out Brett was facing Hogan or something like that. I'd have probably watched more just to see the Brett and Hogan stuff and things like that. And I think there's a question like that later on, like coming to the end here. So yeah, probably then. This year was the release of the Wrestling with Shadows documentary. What do you think of that documentary? Love that documentary. And yes, that was released in 1980. That's of course the documentary about Bret Hart. Just let me address something here, because some of you in Montreal conspiracy theorists are like, well, if it was real, then why were the cameras just happened to be there? So let me explain that. So this is documentary on Bret Hart's life, was signed off in late 1996 when Bret signed the contract. So the cameras have been following Bret for a while, obviously documenting parts of his career and his life and stuff. Then of course they were just about to wrap up when the timing was pretty amazing, wasn't it? I mean, the cameras were there just around the time that Bret and Vince were going through the battles. Vince wanted Bret to go to WCW, and then of course that's what happened. So they were going to film Bret's last match for the WF in Canada in Montreal Survivor Series, and it happened to catch history. So I thought that document, that's probably my favourite wrestling documentary of all time. I've got it on DVD, it's great. And I think it does a good job of vindicating Bret. I mean, gets the truth out there, shows the fans what the WF actually did to Bret and all that, and what Bret went through. So, a really great documentary. I think it was one of the first documentaries like that, because obviously, like nowadays, going behind the scenes and peeling back the curtains happens a lot more now, but in 1988, not so much. So I think it's like the first documentary I'd ever seen where they show you the backstage area and give you just a little peek into what wrestling's like behind the scenes. And of course, next year, 1999, Beyond the Mat came back out and blew that out the water. But yeah, I love that one. Now we're getting the last set of questions here. So we've got an hour and a half into this one, so not as long as the other videos, but a pretty good amount of time. Then we got a Hitman Fan 6A3 then. Best/worst WWE, WCW, ECW pay-per-view. So as I explained before, I'm going to put my hand up and say I've only ever really seen Heatwave 1998 in full, so obviously I would say that's the best, so I can't really say what the worst is. WCW best, guess, Super Brawl? Yeah, Super Brawl. That was awesome show. I mean, you had Benoit versus DDP, Jericho versus Juventud Guerrera. Pretty sure Booker T, Rick Martel happened on that show as well. Yeah, so I'll say that's a great undercard. Then worst, Fall Brawl, that was trash. That was the awful War Games match that they had. Yeah, that was just a bad show overall. Then of course WWF. See, I've got to go SummerSlam as best. I mean, it's out of that and WrestleMania 14, but I'll go SummerSlam 1998 slightly. I mean, you had a Triple H Rock awesome ladder match. Austin Undertaker in a good but not a great main event. Then we got X-Pac and Jeff Jarrett, D'Lo Brown, Val Venus, Shamrock versus Owen Hart Lions Den match. The only really thing that was bad was the Kind Type Oddities match, but that was kind of just harmless comedy anyway. I'll say worst, ironically, the last pay-per-view there, In Your House Rock Bottom. That was a bad show. I mean, Undertaker Austin was a decent buried alive main event. Rock versus Mankind was a good title match, but then you had stuff like Val Venis and The Godfather versus Mark Henry and D'Lo Brown. Headbangers versus The Oddities was a piece of shit. Really terrible match. And then we got, what else did we have? Trying to think. Shamrock and Bossman versus Newish Outlaws. That was a fairly boring match. So yeah, it's got to be rock bottom as the worst pay-per-view of the year for the WWF side of things. Then we go, could you rank all the ECW pay-per-views? No, because like I said, I've already seen one. And did Bret Hart go on to WCW influence you to watch WCW? And if yes, for how long? In his book, Bret Hart noted that most people tuned out after a few segments. So yeah, I watched a little bit more for Bret, but I didn't go out my way. Well, I wasn't really watching full shows or stuff like that. I mean, I was still mainly watching the WWF. So yeah, I was initially interested, but then of course, as it became apparent, Bret wasn't going to be the big deal in WCW. Tuned out a lot more than, but of course at the same time the WWF was going so fantastic that I devoted most of my time to watching that. Then we got worst matches of the year. So last question. So I'll say the absolute worst match of the year has to be the Hogan Warrior from fucking Halloween Havoc. Ugh, horrible stuff. Then of course after that you've got fucking Hogan and Rodman versus DDP and Malone and Bash at the Beach, which wouldn't be so bad if the match hadn't gone so long. Then I'll say on the same token, probably as bad was Hogan and Bischoff versus DDP and Jay Leno at Road Wild. That was pretty awful. I'll say I'm not picking on the guy, but it just happens that he had a lot of bad matches that year. Hogan Savage from Uncensored, that was a poor main event. Not very good at all. Trying to think of what else. Some of the really undercard matches, Starcade are bad, such as did Norman Smiley and Bryan Adams have a match? I can't remember. Fuck. Kane the Undertaker's Judgment Day main event, that was a bad main event. Probably the worst Kane match of the lot. I would say overall, yeah. After the match I mentioned earlier, the Oddities versus the Headbangers from fucking Rock Bottom, that was awful. The Capital Carnage pay-per-view, the UK only pay-per-view, so probably Edge's worst ever match. I mean, don't know how many people you've seen this, but there was a match in that show, Edge versus Tiger Ali Singh, and Tiger Ali Singh actually beat Edge to win that match. That was awful. Really bad match. Sable Jacqueline from Survivor Series, that wasn't a good match at all. So yeah, and that's a wrap, guys. So thanks for the questions. And now this is for those of you who've watched the video, here's an incentive for you, right? So as far as what the next year is going to be, I'm going to leave that up to you guys. So keep listening. So what I want you to do, the first person to comment in the section below requesting a year, that's a year I have to do. And whatever year it is, I will do it, except for one. I will not do 2017 because I'm going to do that the last month of the year. So any year in wrestling that I haven't done before, first person to get comment in the section below wins, and I will do that year. And to signify you're the winner, I'm going to put a love on your comment. So if you comment first and then I put a love on your comment, that means your request wins, and that's the year I'll do. So that is a wrap, guys, and until next time, peace.